Matt Rhule opens up about Dylan Raiola. The freshman quarterback is undoubtedly ahead of schedule, and some of his teammates need to catch up. We get into it next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order.
All right, welcome to a Tuesday show. Connor Happer here from 1620 The Zone in Omaha, and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Matt Rhule had his Monday press conference yesterday, and I think was still probably a little bit fired up from the win. And I think as we mentioned in yesterday's podcast, it was one of those things where it's kind of the perfect teaching game for a coach, where you win comfortably, but also there's the second half that left a lot to be desired. And there was really a whole game, according to Matt Rhule, that left a lot to be desired. We'll talk about that as we go on throughout the show today. But I'm glad you pointed this out, because it was the top headline for me coming out of the press conference today as well. Dylan Raiola is, he talked about it in context of, everybody. He was asked about wide receiver blocking and how that was not going very well, and there was a whole bunch of other things that were going on with the offense, but it was Dylan Raiola who was setting the tone and setting the standard on offense. Let's get right to that. Here's Matt Rhule at Monday's press conference.
Offense, a lot of them have to pick their intensity up to his level, not the other way around. He's trying to throw the ball to guys that are supposed to be in certain places and they're not there. He's at a whole other level, and those other guys better pick it up. That's said respectfully and with love. And I only say that because you guys sometimes ask me, like, hey, did you not throw it as much in the second half because of him? No, because of everyone else. Because other guys aren't, other guys weren't playing at the level I wanted. And so we're having free runners, like, they blitz us and the back misses it or the tackle misses it. And he's having to run around and make plays, but we had guys running wide open. We could have scored a lot more points. We threw a lot of shots in that game. A lot of them just didn't get thrown because he had to run, so we had no sacks because he avoided guys. But Dylan, through 2 games, Dylan's done everything you could want, except he didn't milk the clock enough going into the 2-minute last game. And that's the main thing I had for him. He can be sometimes too aggressive at times, and so me and him that's not Glenn, that's me and him just situationally communicating. But Dylan's doing a great job. I need everyone else to understand that, like, if a freshman knows all 120 plays in the game plan, then as a junior, I better know all 120 plays or 80 plays, whatever's in the game plan, I better know them.
Well, Mitch, there you go. Gone are the days of the summer where they would refuse to name him the starting quarterback and praise him really much at all. We're in a different time now.
Did he mention Heinrich Harburg and Danny Kaelin in that answer? Because I thought the standard line was to talk about how all 3 of them are doing a great job anytime you talk about one.
Yeah. Yep. He did not. I did not hear any Heinrich Harburg or Daniel Kaelin in that clip. No. It's
a little bit alarming. You can take that a couple of different ways, Connor. First, good for Dylan, the true freshman quarterback. He's finally done enough after 2 games for his coach to just go all in on the public praise. They're not holding back anymore on talking about the good things that Dylan is doing. But I wonder, like, where are the veteran offensive players in this discussion? I mean, Nebraska scored 28 points in the first half, 7 were on defense. It wasn't a bad offensive first half by any means, but clearly they're not happy with a lot of stuff on the offensive side. I don't think they believe that Colorado was a team that should have held them to 21 offensive points in that game. Where's Thomas Fidone? Where's Ramir Johnson, Ben Scott, Bryce Benhart, Turner Corker, and Jamal Banks? All these guys, Isaiah Nayor. We'll hear from some of those guys on Tuesday, I'm sure. But, they're not all standing up and leading the way alongside the true freshman. I think some are. I think Ramir Johnson is, the way he plays. But I think this was just a short-lived thing, and Rhule's trying to light a fire under some of these players.
I think it's a message for sure. And I think really the big picture of it is it's a message to your team to say, hey, look, we scored, we scored X amount of points, but like, did you like how we played? Did you like the output of what it was in the, whether it be in the first half or the second half? Like, there's this whole thing that we talked about plenty over the summer where this urgency is there from day one, and Rhule threw Dylan Raiola straight into the fire. We're going to ask him to do things that he's going to do as a junior in his third year when he really is established and a leader and one of the well-known names in college football. We're going to ask him to do that stuff right now, right off the bat. And he's answered that bell. And so you only get so much time with a quarterback like this, and they feel like he's answered that call. And so you look around the rest of the team, and it's like, hold on now. Nebraska's defense is really good. They are old. They are experienced. They have accomplished these things. Like, they've checked a whole bunch of boxes. Nebraska can lean on that. And they retooled the offense for it to be good. This is now a year where we need to get to the maximum of wherever we think we can go. Whatever it could be this year, we need to get there because we feel like we have the team to do it. And I feel like that's the standard that Rhule is holding them to. And through the first 2 weeks, he feels like, or at least, through the Colorado game, the offensive side of the ball, sans Dylan Raiola, is falling short of their own standard. That's what it's about.
I don't want to overreact to it and change the tune that we've been singing all offseason in the early part of this season, that they're not going to lean too heavily on Dylan Raiola, and they're always going to be in a place in his first year where they want him to manage the game and they don't ask him to put too much on his shoulders. Like, he's not going to be required to be a superstar week in and week out for them to win. But that answer, and again, it was just one answer, one moment in one press conference. I think if you ask him again to follow up on that Tuesday, he'll probably walk it back a little bit and praise Dylan, but also come out with, this is just my projection, he will offer some praise for some others on the offensive side.
We got guys who are doing a good job. Yeah.
Yeah. But do we get to a place sometime this year, still here this year? He's 2 games in, and look at the numbers. So the learning curve is accelerated. Does he get to a place in the second half of the season, when we all know the schedule gets more difficult, where Dylan goes from being a game manager to a guy that they believe they can rely on this year right now as a true freshman to win football games for them?
Yeah, they'll have to. I mean, they will have to do that. You don't want to go too heavy in that category, but like I said, like, if you have a quarterback who you think can do these things and execute these things, then let him go do those things. Now, they haven't had to do it in the first 2 games because they haven't been competitive. There will be a time, maybe it's Ohio State, or maybe it's USC, or maybe it's, somebody in between, whatever it might be. But I think that they think he's their best weapon and their best option to put things on his shoulders. At least he is at this moment. And if he is on September 10th, then odds are that he's probably going to be on November 10th also. So like, I think that is, they see this team, they see its potential, they see how the schedule comes together, and they're saying, we have to go now. We have to reach the maximum of whatever we're going to be right now. Because they feel like they have the pieces to make a really big run. So if you're thinking about like college football playoff, my guess would be that they are too. Seriously. I mean, they have turned the key on this, on the intensity and on the urgency so much in the last couple weeks since the season started, or in the last month since camp started. They must think this team has the potential to be really, really, really good.
Well, or good enough to make a 12-team playoff, or good enough to at least make a run at it. You don't have to be 12-0. You don't even have to be 11-1. So there are 2 teams on Nebraska's schedule who I can tell you right now, unequivocally, barring some kind of disaster, are going to be favored to beat Nebraska. That's Ohio State and USC. USC, both road games. Every other game, they're going to go in thinking, and they're going to go into those games thinking they have a chance to win. But every other game, they're going to go in feeling pretty good about their chance to win. Now, it's not to say they're going to go into Iowa City and win at night on Black Friday. It's a tough environment for sure. But it's not the same as USC or Ohio State. This appears to be a good version of USC in year 1 of the Big Ten. I will say, it's encouraging, very encouraging to hear these things from Matt Rhule. And, we'll filter out some of the stuff where he's questioning the whatever it is, he's questioning maybe just like the togetherness in this game of some of the veteran offensive players, get up to speed, like catch up with the true freshmen. I will filter that out and say just the fact that he is lauding Dylan Raiola and saying these things about Dylan Raiola right now, it bodes well for where he's going to be in November. But be happy that Nebraska has all of these other pieces around him. We'll talk about the special teams in the third segment of this show, which is a different story. But it has the defense around him, and it doesn't just have to rely on him to be the guy as a true freshman. Florida just turned to a true freshman, and there aren't a ton of true freshmen who are playing and starting at the quarterback position in college football. Florida put DJ Lagway in last week against Samford, and it won big, and he threw for 456 yards. This is in place of Graham Mertz, the former Wisconsin QB who's out hurt. That's what Florida's going to need to do to win games in the SEC. They need DJ Lagway, the true freshman, to be that guy. Nebraska doesn't need Dylan Raiola to be that guy. And you combine that with what Rhule said on Monday, and it's an encouraging sign.
No doubt about it. All right, we'll come back here in the second segment. There's still a whole bunch of stuff we have to get through from Rhule today, including I think most of this is, and it's kind of on this idea, most of this is born out of how much he likes the team and how good he thinks they can be and what they thought they could have accomplished on Saturday. So there was still a little bit more on that. We'll be back after this. Quick reminder first, if you're watching with us on YouTube, subscribe, like the show. It helps us out, and we appreciate it as well. You can also email us, lockedonneb@gmail.com. We're still doing that mailbag show. You can tweet at LockedOnNEB. Also, Mitch wants to change the tunnel walk again, and we'll give him the platform to do that, I suppose. We'll be back after this.
All right, Locked On Nebraska fans, I want to take a minute and tell you about a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love. It's called Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach like maybe Matt Rhule and lead your college football program. Can you imagine doing that? You could be Ryan Day. You could be Kirk Ferentz. From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. The question is this: will you be able to handle the pressure? Here's what I love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your season, but it will shape the future and legacy of your program. That's very dramatic. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free. It has no ads and is 100% playable offline. So you can play on the go as you want, when you want to play. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Nebraska viewers and listeners. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk. It will get your team off to a strong start. Download the game. Visit ultimate-cfb.com. That's ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, welcome back. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone in Omaha is with me. Some odds and ends to catch up on from Lincoln on Monday. Rhule, he lobbed a few grenades at Colorado over the border. Huskers won't be playing Colorado anytime soon, so why not? He said they did not want to play a bunch of young guys like Carter Nelson in this game, because this was a game for the players who went to Boulder last year and had to experience that. So the older players, he wanted them to get the joy of beating Colorado. Okay, presumptuous. Let you guys just take a rest today. We're going to let the vets get in there. He also told us what his prediction for the game was, which you don't often hear from coaches in the aftermath of a game. He said he thought that Nebraska was going to score 40 points and hold Colorado to 10. Okay, thoughts there?
We heard a little bit of that in the post game too, and you kind of thought, oh, he's just excited, whatever. No, I mean,
going back to it.
Yeah. Well, and it confirms it because, this is the press conference where you take the emotion out of it a little bit. You've watched the tape.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, we could have scored 40 and it could have been worse. And it wasn't just because they let off the gas in their mind. It was because they, lacked the execution to do so. He's right. He's right. They didn't do the right things consistently enough. Really, the entire game offensively. It's they got 3 touchdowns offensively in the game, but it's really crazy. And the quarterback didn't throw any interceptions. They didn't fumble at all. They didn't turn the football over. But also at the same time, they didn't play very well. That's a great position to be in an 18-point win.
Right. So he asked me after the press conference, I was outside in the hall, and he asked me directly what my prediction was for the game. I think he maybe thought that I had predicted a win similar to his, and I told him it was 27-17, and he kind of shook his head like, you're not a believer. By the way, our picks were ugly. We'll review this later in the week when we get to week 3, but we both got Nebraska to cover in the in our Nebraska predictions. In other Big Ten games, we both went a fat 0-4 against the spread. So don't like that. Don't like where that's headed.
No,
I meant to another thought here, and this I will get to this tunnel walk thing. I meant to ask you this on Monday and forgot. On the video that Nebraska put together that weaved the Terrence Crawford footage, and I'm going to have an article about that and just all the cool things that are happening around Nebraska football right now. That's out on The Athletic tomorrow on Wednesday. But in that article, or I'm sorry, in that video, did you hear them playing the song that Nebraska uses in the locker room on its way out to the field? At least I think it's the song. It might be something that's edited in after, like in post-production, but there's a song that you hear in the background as Nebraska's walking out.
Yes.
Do you hear
it?
Yeah.
I noticed that song. Yes.
Okay. So it's like civil defense sirens on repeat. My researchers who have the same last name as
for the record, that is featured in a lot of songs. Just saying.
All right. This one in particular, according to my researchers who go to school, walk to school nearby me and have the last name Sherman, they confirmed that this song is The Purge by Demetrius X. Do you believe this? Does this sound correct?
That sounds right. I wouldn't be able to confirm that, but I will believe them. We'll just go along with that.
I think Nebraska already has this in their library, clearly. I think they should use this as the walkout song to replace the tired, stale, out-of-date, lacking rhythm Sirius that has been used for 1,000 years at Memorial Stadium. I've given my thoughts. Yeah,
you hate it.
I've given my thoughts previously on this song on Sirius, so I won't belabor it. But one of the questions that I've heard when I've lauded Nebraska or urged Nebraska to retire Sirius, give it its proper burial, is like, okay, well, I mean, what are they going to do? Like, what music could they play? There's no other song. It's like, no, there's like a million other songs
There's
you
so
could
many
play
songs
that would be better than Sirius. And now I have the answer. It's The Purge. And Nebraska's already using this song. There was a UFC fighter, Brian Ortega, who used this as a walkout song. I went down a rabbit hole on this, Connor. He used this as a walkout song a couple years ago. It's freaking cool. You can go find it on YouTube. It would need to be edited quite a bit and remixed if Nebraska was to use it. I'm sure that some permissions would need to be granted, which would probably happen. They could pay the money to get it done.
You can pay the same money they've been paying the Alan Parsons project for this many years.
Probably less. Could probably pay less. So the only kind of fly in the ointment, and I don't really think this is a problem, is that this music, The Purge, it comes from a series of movies called The Purge,
right,
from 2013 to 2021, and there was a short-lived TV series about a dystopian American society in which everything is great, like there's low unemployment, no crime, until you find out that one day, for 12 hours, everything, including murder, is legal. That's what I want Nebraska walking out to.
Wait,
look, it's violence. Violence is about to happen.
You didn't know that The Purge was a series of movies? You never heard of The Purge before?
I've never seen any of the Purge movies, but I'm gonna go watch at least one of them. I've heard of it. Yes,
movies. They're actually good movies for the record. But yes, that you described it well. Crime. They come over the speakers and they're like, "All crime is now legal." It's great.
See, that's in the song. Like that voice is in the song, and I think they should probably remove it and just go with the instrumental version of this Demetrius X. It might be Demetrius 10. It's probably Demetrius X.
I'll tell you this. I appreciate how well researched you are on this, because if you're going to take down the Alan Parsons project, you better, if you come at the king, you best not miss. And you did a great job. I don't want to I'm an undecided voter at this point. I am fine with killing off Sirius. I think that's great, but I don't want to endorse any other specific song yet. Right. Okay. Like this is a long process. Now, honestly, so many traditions have gone by the wayside. So many things have changed over the years about Nebraska football. And guess what happens? We all adjust and we all figure it out. And so if they were to change it, and also it coincides with Nebraska football being good again, which is like possibly happening right now, then I don't even think people would care, to be completely honest with you.
There's new traditions all the time. They started a new tradition last week of Will Compton screaming at the fans at the beginning of the game. They, a few years ago, they started playing Thunderstruck at the start of the fourth quarter. Like
the Killigans.
The Cornhusker song. You can do this. It's okay. Like you can put it out of its misery, but whatever. I talked to Troy Dannon today, and I didn't bring this up, but I almost did. I almost asked him about the tunnel walk, but I didn't. I thought it might be like unethical.
Troy, just imagine
strong personal feelings.
Just imagine this world where you turn Memorial Stadium into a scene from The Purge.
I know. It's great. It's great. Yeah,
it's good idea.
Great. All right. After the break, Matt Rhule put a couple of Nebraska position groups on blast on Monday. We'll get into that coming up after this.
All right, it's Apper here for the FanDuel Sportsbook, which is America's #1 sportsbook. NFL is going on right now. I'm so happy that the NFL is back, and I was extra happy this weekend. You want to know why? Because I'm a smart person, and you have an opportunity to do the same thing. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then you got your quad box going and your octo box. You can watch all the games all at the same time. $5 with a bet on the FanDuel Sportsbook, and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with your YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel, of course, anytime. So head to FanDuel.com/lockedon and get yourself some free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. That is with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, today, welcome back, Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Yesterday, Monday in the press conference, Matt Rhule calling out the special teams, asked about the performance. Plainly, he said it was the worst. I think he said the worst he's ever seen.
As bad as he can remember. Yes.
Yeah. So that was certainly stark, and he was very blunt about that. And it wasn't just the kicking. It was the long kickoff return by Jimmy Horn Jr. The long snapping has not been great. He did give
punt
credit
block.
to Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. They got a punt blocked. He did give credit to IGC, who has made some plays on punt returns, but he's also, not, cost them anything on that as well. And he said that this is the comment that got my attention was it's right here. There's a lot of things that aren't real good. We got the right guy in the job for the job in Ed. He will get it fixed. Sort of a vote of confidence there for the special teams coordinator, which I thought was sort of interesting.
Can't be hating on Ed Foley.
Wouldn't dream of it.
I think Nebraska needs to bring somebody in, and maybe it already has, work with the kickers, and Brian Buschini is doing a nice job this year. I don't know if it's a medical situation related to the injury with Tristan Alvano, but they were talking up John Hole at the beginning of camp and haven't given him the opportunity to go out and do any kind of place kicking. He's been out there on field goals. On kickoffs. And he was the one who chased down Jimmy Horn Jr. to prevent a touchdown return on a kickoff. Nebraska has to kick it into the end zone, just end of the story, on kickoffs.
Totally.
But, just a lot of things just kind of falling apart on special teams, which is just not what you'd think you would see in a program in its second year, where as much attention to detail is given to various things like this as what Rhule wants to do. So, they want to play starters on coverage units and in the return game. The specialists, long snapping, place kicking, like they got to get it together. They got to get it figured out. I mean, I wrote in my little game file that I keep as the game's going on, my own personal notes to me during the game. Like I wrote like field goal missed as Alvano. I did not expect that they were going to make that field goal, which was like 30. It was 35 or in
32, I think.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Like I watched him in warmups. I watched him in the kicking extra points, and I had very little confidence that they were going to make that kick.
Yeah, I don't think he has any confidence either. And I think there's been high snaps, and I mean, there was one where we definitely couldn't tell from the press box, although I knew that it looked like there was something off to me. If you watch the TV, and people watching it on NBC certainly saw this. I believe it was on after the pick six. That kick almost didn't make it in on the extra
didn't get over
point.
The crossbar.
Yeah, I mean, like by just a little bit, and that was because of the high snap and then the late hold. So I think this is a thing that is unfortunately now just kind of like snowballing, right? Your kicker was hurt. He didn't have confidence. And then, he's in a battle for his job, and then the snaps come in high, and now it's just like, oh boy, and that like, it's not a great situation for a kicker to step up there and be confident to knock down a kick. So I agree with you, Mitch. I don't have any sort of confidence whatsoever that Nebraska can really make any sort of field goal at this moment. It's a bad place to be. But if you're going to be in this place, it's better that you're in it on September 10th than you are, like I said earlier, on November 10th.
You don't want to be in it on September 20th when Illinois comes to town on Friday night. Like, get it fixed the next week. They need to send out the bat signal for like Chris Brown or Brett Maher or somebody who's not in the NFL right now to come in and work with these guys. I mean, look, Foley can only do so much. Like, he teaches the fundamentals of special teams, and there's an organizational role to be a special teams coordinator. He can't play for them. And, while Rob Dvorak can teach more of the actual linebacker play, same thing with Terrence Knighton, same thing with Donovan Raiola. Special teams is a cerebral thing, and you can draw things up. You can make sure you have the right players in the right places. But as far as actually coaching them on the physical aspects of it, they may have to have some other people involved. So bring a kicker.
They just have to go kick it.
Yeah.
That's the problem with this thing. There's no answer. Like, the only thing is they have to go figure it out, right? Because you can't, like, you only have so many guys on your roster that could do it in the first place, and there's a reason why the top guy is the top guy. He's your best option. So I don't know. That does not bode well, and it's usually not something where, if it's this bad, which it does seem like it is that bad, that's not usually something that gets cleaned up in 10 days. So, that's a real life concern right now. Luckily, Nebraska's defense is dominant and their offense isn't turning the ball over. Otherwise, they'd be losing games in the stretch coming up that they should not. So
they're going to play. They're going to play a good defense in Illinois, and they're going to play a lot of good defenses they're going to play a good defense in Rutgers. Purdue pitched a shutout in its season opener against an FCS opponent. So I don't know about that, but they're going to play some good defenses coming up sooner rather than later here. And there are going to be times where they get stopped. You get in the red zone, it gets a little tighter for Dylan to that's where the lack of a QB run game, I think, will hurt them a little bit. You need to have a good kicker. If you've got a pro style quarterback who sits in the pocket and you don't have Justin Jefferson catching balls in the end zone, which they have good receivers, but they're not all Americans.
Yeah.
You need to have a kicker because you're going to have to kick some field goals. So, all right. One other thing that Rhule was worked up about was the perimeter blocking. And you mentioned this in the first segment. There were blocks missed on a bubble screen at least once, yards lost because of some penalties downfield that involved receivers, running backs. He said that they counted 160 yards lost and then the touchdown from Rahmir Johnson as a result of mistakes or penalties in the downfield blocking. So here's another thing that's going to cost Nebraska if it's not cleaned up by Big Ten play.
I'd say this. I think it's great for Rhule to say, hey, look, we and they do, like, they have to get like fundamentally better at it and all that stuff. But some of those were just individually awesome plays by Travis Hunter. So,
oh yeah,
so you're not gonna play Travis Hunter ever again. You'll never see Travis Hunter ever again. So he's a really good player. And should Nair have got in front of him, have blocked him on that bubble screen that got completely blown up in the first quarter? Like, yeah, but also at the same time, he's Travis Hunter. So there's learning lessons that come along with it. Nebraska has something to get better at. And also they're not going to see a guy like him, in the future. So
Hunter made a play on Barney. There was a route across the middle to Barney where Rahmir Johnson was called for a hold, and it was a bad call. He just blew his guy up. He took him off of his feet, and Barney jumped over the player on the ground that Rahmir Johnson had wiped out and then cut toward the middle of the field. And Jamal Banks was locked up with Hunter a bit. So Hunter went from a dead stop, basically like horns hooked with Jamal Banks, a 6'4", 220-pound guy who has him outweighed by 40 pounds. And he turned, and Barney was running past him. And then Hunter took off after Barney and caught up to him in about 10 yards. This is Ja'Cory Barney, who's in the conversation to be the fastest player on the Nebraska team. And yeah, he was changing directions, but Hunter was stopped and facing the other way in a battle with Jamal Banks. So, hey,
great play.
They lost. That would have been a touchdown with a normal defensive back. It should have been a touchdown if there had been a normal defensive back in there, but it was nothing because Rahmir was called for a bogus holding call.
All right. That's it for us today. We will have many more things to get into the rest of the week, and leading you up to Nebraska against Northern Iowa this coming Saturday with a little less fanfare behind it. No offense to the Panthers. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman, we thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. You can find it in the description right here below if you're watching with us on YouTube or on the audio platform. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.